So I'll be sharing just for a few minutes, but our course has to do with the image of God, leadership in the image of God. And it's by Dr. Ken Boa. We have taught another class in the past for both leaders, pastors, and academic students at Northwestern University, Christian University, Kampala campus, or Mercy University. And we look forward to being with all of you again starting next Thursday as we move into leadership in the image of God and this particular textbook. And I posted, Dr. Boa has very graciously allowed us to make a PDF version of that available to all of you on our WhatsApp. And so you do have a copy of that through the WhatsApp. And I do ask that you respect how gracious he has been and use it for yourself, but don't pass that on. And so in any event, it's a wonderful, wonderful textbook. And Dr. Epperson and I have had the privilege of getting to know Dr. Boa over a couple of years. He is an incredibly humble person. But I want to mention that a statement that I have on the inside of my book, as I was thinking about 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, getting into this book, and I wrote this statement: other books on leadership may focus on principles and be inspiring. This book focuses on the character of God and is life transforming. I'm going to state that again. Other books on leadership may focus on principles and be inspiring. This book focuses on the character of God and is life transforming. And that's one reason why I'm so blessed to be able to use this book and to be able to help as we help to develop ourselves and work together as a team to become leaders for a time such as this. Just as Esther, she probably didn't realize all that God had called her out to be years before she became queen of Persia, I believe. But she stepped into that role for a time such as this. And that's the sort of roles that we need to step into, whether we're in East Africa right now, or in Texas or Oklahoma, other parts of the United States, Kansas, to step up for a time such as this. And that's my challenge for myself, for each one of us here, to step up for a time such as this, to be a leader in the image of God. So let's look at the next slide. And this is really an opening scripture for the book that Dr. Boa shares. David shepherded them with integrity of heart, with skillful hands, he led them. And we've been talking about being a servant leader, a shepherd in a sense. And I'll mention this may come as a surprise to people. We were talking about pastors and the importance of balance and not getting an ego, because it's very tempting. I have the privilege of being a pastor at the church where I am, though I'm bivocational. And as was mentioned, I also work for one of the representatives in our House of Representatives in the state of Texas. But it came to me as somewhat of a surprise when I read this a few months ago. You'll see the name Apostle Paul in the Bible. How many people do you see that are named Pastor so-and-so in the Bible? I'll answer that to what I read and I believe is correct as I've thought it through. None. You see one called the Lord our Shepherd or the Lord our Pastor, that's Jesus. But as far as a title, and that's humbling, because we don't serve for the title. We serve because we love God, and he's given us the opportunity and the gifting as a pastor, as an apostle, as a prophet, whomever, whatever. And that's important in the body of Christ for a divine purpose. But we sure don't want to get titles out, make too much of a title is what I'm sharing there. So David shepherded them with integrity of heart, with skillful hands he led them. And that's so important as we go ahead to the next slide, Timothy, if you would, as we look at the just sort of the how this book is set up, talking about integrity of heart, skillful hands. There are 3 sections in the book, as you see, as you will get into it. The first has to do with personal development, and our first chapter, which we'll be teaching on next week, has to do with character. The second chapter, I believe, has to do with humility. There are other chapters in that section on integrity, but a number of them on personal development that has to do with that integrity of heart. And then the skillful hands. Dr. Boa goes into skill development for the second section. And then the third section has to do with relational development. And we will be drawing from chapters in each of those three sections in order that we ultimately can become better servant leaders. And I do want to say, in light of the personal development, I loved what Pastor Ashley, who is also an associate pastor at the church where I attend, shared about guarding our hearts. And as we go through this series, we'll emphasize that and re-emphasize that in light of this personal development, so important to be guarding our hearts. And then the next slide, please. Ken himself, Dr. Boa, actually states at the very beginning of the book, keep in mind that the major focus of the Bible's teaching on leadership centers on two concepts. First, the leader's character counts more than any other factor of leadership, and that character is best molded and shaped by Jesus' own teachings. So character, number one. The second concept is the only approach to leading Jesus validates for his followers is servant leadership, what a number of us have already mentioned today and tonight, and we will be getting into that more. But I have, as far as those of you who are not pastors who are on this, I encourage you to be using this material wherever you are. For instance, in the legislative responsibility that I have the privilege to help craft some leadership training that our legislative staff is going through. And we are using these two fundamentals that you see on that screen in light of that leadership training, that number one, character counts more than any other factor of leadership. And secondly, we emphasize servant leadership. And so it's a blessing whether you are in a church or whether you are out in the marketplace at teaching, helping others, like Dr. Epperson gets to share with high-level executives and leaders in the business world throughout the United States. Wherever you may be, whether it's in your family, it may be right within your family. Don't underestimate the importance of these principles, these truths that we are going through in Dr. Boa's book to help you in whatever that area of leadership you are in. And then as we go to the next slide, we'll be talking in light of this personal development that the importance of leading ourselves first. And as Thales, ancient Greek philosopher, I believe, the most difficult thing in life is to know yourself. And that's why I think Pastor Ashley mentioned about the importance she has set up at sort of an outside sphere to help her to stay on track, and that she can be completely transparent with, because she understands that truth about the most difficult thing in life is to know yourself. And she even encouraged everybody to have a counselor. And that's not just for the people that are basket cases, I think, as similar to what she said. And then John Wooden, a famous coach in the United States over a basketball team that won more national basketball championships than any other coach almost certainly will ever have. And he said, before he was a Christian, before you can, I think he's passed away now, before you can lead others, you must be able to lead yourself. And then John Maxwell, I think Pastor Judith referenced him before, the toughest person to lead is always yourself. So some of the great things as far as the importance of us leading ourselves first. And then I just have a couple more slides. If you go to the next one, please, Timothy. This has to do with, again, why it is so important for us to lead ourselves first and to be wary about the shortcomings that we personally have. Jim Whittaker, who was the first American to climb Mount Everest in 1963, makes this statement: you can never conquer the mountain, you can only conquer yourself. And then a top CEO, Tom Chappell, in his book, Managing Upside Down, says, sure, I am a religious man who is also passionate about conserving the environment, but I'm also a CEO with all the bad habits and attitudes that are natural to the species. We who are pastors could say the same thing with all the bad habits and attitudes that are natural to the species. I'm still naturally self-interested, overconfident, full of pride, and eager to control a meeting as any CEO in America. Every day I struggle with my ego. When we recognize that fact, then we can more humbly take other steps to protect ourselves from that. And then this one I love as a Colson Fellow with the Colson Center for Christian Worldview, as I am very thankful for Chuck Colson's mentorship in a program I went through on biblical worldview. Chuck Colson happened to be senior counsel for President Nixon. He was in the inner circle of President Nixon. Those of you who are outside of this country may not know that President Nixon then had a great shortcoming with something called the Watergate scandal, of which Chuck Colson got caught up in it. But Chuck Colson got born again just prior to the Watergate scandal breaking out fully. And he very willingly went to jail for what took place there, his part. And he came out of jail and set up Prison Fellowship, which is the largest prison fellowship ministry. I think it's called Prison Fellowship. I better have that correct. Throughout the United States and the world. And at one time I saw it in several of the countries in Africa, if not many of them. But in any event, he makes this statement: every human being has an infinite capacity for self-rationalization and self-delusion. Why do I say that? I say that again, just so that we can recognize the old man that we all have to deal with, and then embrace the truths that we gain from God's word and through this particular text as we go through it to help us to walk as servant leaders. And as Ken Boa mentions in the book, serving others can be tough. Expending your energies and resources in the interest of others can be exhausting, even as others of you on this Zoom call have mentioned. Yet the most effective leaders are servants. And for me, just to close here, I want to mention next week we begin officially with our academic class, and for others of you to be a part of this. And so I encourage you, because you now do have a copy of the PDF version of the book on WhatsApp, that as we begin officially next week, we don't assign homework academically prior to week one, but if you do start now, you will read the chapter having to do with character. And then for homework for week two includes chapters 1 through 4. So it doesn't hurt you to get started a bit early. And I encourage you to do that. But it is a thrill to be with Dr. Epperson, sharing this again, Pastor Judith, all of the rest of you who it's been a joy to get to know long distance through these Zoom conferences. But I'll turn it back to you, Pastor Judith.